Welcome to the Capoeira Experience podcast, where you are going to learn how capoeiristas got where they are, how they keep the motivation, why they do what they do, and even how they do business through capoeira. I hope you enjoy it and learn something from their experience. This episode is brought to you by Mazzuk.com, sports and performance psychology consulting and performance enhancement life coaching, a catalytic process for competent evolution focused on self-discovery and self-mastery. Stop playing small, you can be better. Visit Mazzuk.com for more information. Again, that's Mazzuk.com. What's up, Capoeira Nation? Welcome back to the Capoeira Experience podcast. I'm your host, Instructor Kashishi. If you guys don't know who I am yet, go back to episode number 1 and listen a little bit of my story. And also, I want to say thank you so much to all the support, and please help me to get to more people. And let's spread out a little bit more the Capoeira word. All right on. Today's episode, this capoeirista have a really good work. I started following him on Instagram. I see that he has a pretty cool creative way to keep those kids busy with a lot of games, which is pretty cool, by the way. I did my homework, and I saw that he started capoeira in 1997. He came across with Mr. Cicatriz from Rio de Janeiro in 2001. The journey in Kadara Capoeira begins from there. So I would like to introduce you to Professor Soquete. How are you doing, man?
Hey, my friend, how are you?
Pretty good. Good. How is everything over there?
That's great. We just finished a couple of hours of classes, so it's nice and quiet in the academy. And I'd much rather be talking to you than sweeping the floors. So
Yeah,
I'm glad to be here.
nice. All right, so now before we start jumping to the interview and we start talking about capoeira, and tell us a little bit your social media. How can people find you on social media so they can see your work?
Most of my stuff on social media comes through Kadara Capoeira Canada on Facebook and Instagram. I used to use a little bit of Twitter, but I can't keep up. There's too many tweets that go on. And then I've got another Instagram page, Professor Soquete, nice and easy. But honestly, all the real work is through Kadara Capoeira Canada or
Nice.
Kadara Capoeira Scarborough.
Okay, cool. What about Facebook? Do you have any Facebook?
Facebook, we have Kadara Capoeira Canada Facebook page, and there's a
Nice,
lot there. And my personal Facebook is Soquete Kadara.
nice. So people can go there and follow you, follow the work. What about website?
The website for our school is learncapoeira.ca.
Nice. I like that website. It's pretty easy to for people that doesn't do capoeira to understand. So they just like, oh, learn capoeira, then it's easy for them to find it.
Yeah, that's exactly why I put it together that way. Because when you're promoting capoeira outside of Brazil in an English-speaking country, sometimes our shirts say, Associação Kadara Capoeira, Cicatriz, and then it
Yeah,
has other words on the back, and nobody can read any of it. So even when we do public demonstrations and shows, we have a shirt that just say a big capoeira on it, and then it says Kadara Toronto on the back, learncapoeira.ca, and a picture. Because that's
nice.
all people need to see. They don't need to read all the other things. It's simpler for them to just get an idea. And everybody's just taking photos these days anyway, right? And posting it. So
Yeah,
it's the best way to get it out there simply and easily.
yeah. That way people just, I mean, they can learn names and all the stuff once they're start practicing and all the stuff. Which is
Absolutely.
I think is pretty good idea because I did graphic design back in the country where I'm from. I'm from Venezuela, and that's super easy strategy for marketing. That's pretty easy. And at the beginning, I usually like to talk about the story. Tell us a little bit of your capoeira story from the very beginning until now. How, and you can start however you want.
So I guess my journey in the world of martial arts started in 1986. I
Nice.
started training a Goju-based karate system that was literally in the church hall, 5 houses down from where I lived. So I just walked to class as a 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid. Then I did that for like 3.5 years, and then that academy moved away, and then a Taekwondo school came in. I trained that for another 3.5 years before I joined the Australian Navy. Spent a few years doing military work, and then when I got out, I was living in Sydney, and I saw that movie Only the Strong in the middle of 1996. And that
Nice.
was before Google, right? And I've heard
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people say the same thing. So it took months of me spreading the word with everybody I know in the fitness industry, saying, hey, if you ever see this stuff, I want to learn it. One day, this guy came in, put down a flyer on the table in my work lunchroom, and he said, is this it? It's a picture of a guy doing a aobachido
Okay.
in front of the
That's
Sydney
cool.
Harbour Bridge. And I was like, that's it. And that was a class that same day.
That's awesome. Basically, like destiny came like right straight to you.
Yeah, it was amazing. And so I trained there for a couple of years. And then when I met Mestre Cicatriz, it was like going from elementary teacher to a university professor.
Nice.
The way things were broken down, the way he understood the martial concepts, the way he held the group together, and the way he had the energy about him. It was just where I needed to be, and I've
Nice.
been with him ever since. The group's gone through a few name changes, but our lineage has always been the same, and my mastery has always been Mestre Cicatriz.
Nice. Nice. So the energy pretty much like clicked like right away.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was just an amazing guy, a very worldly guy, very calm, very patient. And so I trained with him for years. And then one day he had to travel back to Brazil. His mother was not well, and he wanted to go home for a little while. And he said to me, Soquete, she's like, I need you to look after these 2 classes for me just for 2 months while I'm gone.
Okay.
And I was like, Mestre, I'm not, that's not my job. I can't do that. I'm not, I don't have those skills. And he was like, look, he said, it's only 2 months. You're going to be fine. He's like, everything I give you in class, you can do. You understand what you're doing. Just give it a try. So I did. And
Nice.
after he came back, he said, I'm going to sit and watch you teach a class. And I was like, that was even more nerve wracking, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So he watched me teach the class. And then at the end of class, we went out and had dinner. And he said, listen, I want you to keep teaching this class.
That's awesome.
But 3 hours before the class, you come to my house and we train.
Nice.
And then you give class and I'll be watching and we can talk about it after. And so he really took me under his wing, and
That's awesome.
from there, it was an opportunity to change my life. I started to teach other classes there around the graduado level,
Yeah.
um, and just taught there. And then I met a Canadian lady. She was training in our group, and we're not supposed to date students. So
Yeah.
I had to be very serious about my desire to date this young lady.
Yeah,
And I
of
spoke
course.
to the maestri, and he's like, well, if anything goes wrong, you're out and she stays. And I was like, no problem.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I'm gonna really make sure. And nearly 15 years later, we're still together, and we have
That's awesome.
2 beautiful kids. So with the second kid coming along, we moved to Canada in 2010, and I started teaching in Toronto 2011. March 11th. So actually,
Nice.
Monday is the 8-year anniversary of my teaching
That's so
classes in
cool.
Toronto.
That's so cool.
And now we ran classes in a few different venues. It's always challenging when you're in venues to get the right timing, to get the right
Yeah.
locations and stuff. We built the group to a point where I wanted to take the leap. And 2 years ago, we opened Kadara Capoeira Canada, which is now our full-time academy in Scarborough, in Toronto's east side.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that's the goal for I think almost all capoeiristas out there trying to teach, to have at least like full schedule of like classes and like have always the traffic of people doing capoeira.
Yeah, it made a huge difference to, only having 3 classes a week that were 2 hours long, and you have to try to squeeze everything in. When we came here, I'd suddenly have 3 classes a night or 2 classes every night: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday's family time, and classes from 10 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. on Saturday.
Damn, nice.
So Adult classes, they can do 8, 9 classes in a week. Kids classes, it's 3 classes a week for kids. There's three
Cool.
classes a week for the youth. I'm just looking at the schedule.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
do an advanced class for orange cord up. We do 2 specific Benguela classes
That's
because for me, I
nice.
think Benguela is a separate language,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I find it really important to keep a division so the students can appreciate the nuances in the different styles.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And the Benguela class that our students have to do a year's worth of the Regional classes
Nice.
before they can enter into the Benguela, just as a way to make sure they understand that it's 2 different languages.
Yeah,
And I don't want them to mix the dialects until they have a good enough understanding of one
that's
so
really
they
cool.
can
That's
start
really
the
cool.
other.
And do you created that system, or does with Mr. Cicatrice like show you that?
Mestri and and the other members of our group, we keep Benguela and Regional fairly separate. It's a different rhythm, it's a different type of game, and we have a different set of objectives. So when I had the opportunity, and a lot of our other teachers don't have the opportunity or the space or the time,
Yeah,
when I had the opportunity to open up more classes, I said, right, specifically separating the classes and
that's
making
awesome.
sure that we can, understand the nuances.
Yeah. Well, because if someone wants to learn a little bit more Benguela, they can just go to that class in a specific class.
Yes. But
Yeah.
then when it comes to Batizado time, you have to have a specific number of Regional classes as well.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you're just coming to the Benguela classes, you're going to have trouble moving up in the system because we're a Regional first school, and Benguela is supplementary to that.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I like to structure those kind of stuff because that's what I do for my class too. I have like, okay, this month I structure this way so they can the kids they don't get confused because it's pretty easy to get confused with styles and kicks, and especially when they're starting.
Yeah, especially when, like in capoeira, some people say capoeira is everything, and everything should work in every game and every style, and it shouldn't matter, and then that can sort of create more confusion. But I think in our system, in our school, they're very, very different styles, and you can't do a martelo standing up in our Benguela system. You have to
Yeah.
have a hand on the floor when you do a martel,
Okay.
or we don't do queixadas and armadas standing up in our Benguela. When we're on the floor, we're on the floor. When we're playing Regional, it's more upright.
Okay.
So I made a joke once. I said to my students, I said it's like scuba diving and snorkeling. When I play Regional, I'm
Yeah.
always around the top, and I might come down, but I have to
Yeah.
come back up for my breath.
Oh,
So this is
cool.
where the
Okay.
Regional, I said, but scuba diving, I want to spend a lot of time navigating around the bottom and seeing what's there. And then if I lose my bearings, back up to the top, have a look around,
Yeah.
do your balances, and then back down into the game.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Analogy with those kind of stuff. I like it. And
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, of course. And like jumping a little back to your story and all that stuff. Why Soquete? How you got that nickname?
The apellido,
Yeah.
I have abnormally large thighs, calves, and butt. My lower limbs are much heavier than my upper body.
Okay.
So Mestre said, your legs are very big and they're very heavy, and it's like in Rio, the soquete is what they used to mash and pound like a mortar pestle thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. For
So
the corn
Mestre's
and
like,
all those stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Mestre's like, your legs are big and strong. He's like, if you hit somebody with that, I said, man, I don't want to hit anybody, Mestre.
Yeah, yeah.
Too old for that. But
So
yeah, that's how I got it. It's funny. I like it, and it's unique. But a lot of people, because it's a very colloquial term for
yeah,
the soquete, a lot of people who from Brazil, they're like, why soquete? What's soquete?
yeah, yeah,
But I kind of like it. It makes it more unique. I'm not, one of 100 mystery so and so,
yeah,
or professor such and such.
yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. It is very unique because I met a lot of capoeira people. I don't remember someone called Sokechi. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how like now that you already covered your story and all stuff. Let's talk a little bit more about your classes and how you structure that. because I feel like uh, I like organization, and I like being instructors and I like structures. I feel like that helps the people, especially people that never seen capoeira before, to understand more better what we do and how we do it. I like to break down movements and all stuff. And how do you attract people, or how do you sell your idea to people that never done capoeira before?
So, yeah, finding people that or bringing people in that have no exposure to capoeira, it's a modern digital age. If people know about capoeira and they want to come, they Google it. If we're closer, and and they like what they see when they do their research, they come in. And finding people who've never heard of capoeira and educating them about the art form is my favorite part of bringing people in.
Nice.
There's a street festival here in Scarborough called the Taste of Lawrence Festival, and
Mm.
every year we do like 4 or 5 45-minute to 1 hour show demonstrations.
Oh, cool.
And when we do the shows, our focus is really on education. So it's not just set up a harder, jump around, flip around, hand out flyers, and go.
Yeah.
We do batucada, we do makulele, we do capoeira, we do solos, but the whole thing becomes an experience where I take time to explain this is batucada, this is where it comes from, this is how it's used.
Yeah.
And then I say, okay, we're going to do makulele, it's the danza guerrero. So I take a lot of time to explain the history, the art. I give a separate component during the show just for the music and explain the birimbau, explain the instruments, explain how the music tells stories, how there's history and metaphor and lessons to be learnt in the music and morals to be passed on. Then when we do the capoeira, I like to show how it's done in class a little bit with Jenga and
Yeah.
lines. I'm going to do this. And then, especially if I've got kids there, then I'm going to say, okay, we're going to have the kids and we'll show the kids. And you, like you already mentioned, games, right? So letting the kids that are watching see these little guys playing games and it's follow the leader. Everyone's doing the same thing. So even
Right.
if you don't know it in the first time I sing the movement, by the time I get to the third one, every other kid's down in Cocorinho and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to be here too. So you can even draw kids out of the crowd to join in and be a part of that. And then when it comes to demonstrating, again, I explain that during the game, our priorities can change. So
Okay.
I'll say, okay, my guys are going to play with a more acrobatic approach. And then
Okay.
they play a little bit more acrobatic. And I say, and now we're going to play with a more martial approach. And they're going to do some takedowns and we're going to do some stuff. And I'm like, none of this is scripted. These guys are just going to play a little bit. And he's going to try to take this guy down. This guy's going to try to
Yeah.
take this guy down. So people can see that there are a variety of elements to the art form, and no one has always got the greater priority
Okay.
while we play. Sometimes it's the rhythm that dictates what style of game we're going to play. Sometimes it's the song, and sometimes it's the energy between players that will
Yeah.
dictate or change how a game is played. And then we get the batucada and finish on the big drums
Yeah.
again, and everyone loves that. But I really enjoy letting people see the culture and the history of the art form. It's not just dance fighting. We're not
Yeah.
just,
And just kicking around and jumping on
yeah.
and flipping and stuff.
That's another thing that I see quite often. Demonstrative show capoeira and everyone's kick, 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 and nobody has to esquiva and nobody's in
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
And you're doing your solo there and I'm doing my solo there.
It's not
I'm
that
all
engagement
about,
in between people.
yeah, I need to see and demonstrate an interaction because it
Yeah.
makes it easier than to argue the point when people go, oh, but you're not kicking each other. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to kick that guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he sees my kick and he gets out of the way, and then I've got to duck his kick.
Yeah.
And if
Exactly.
there's a conversation there in the game, you should be able to see that.
Yeah. To kind of like read the body language, so you know where person's gonna go, so you can kind of like go ahead of the game and just becomes on a conversation.
Absolutely. It's all about conversation.
Yeah. And yeah, because it's same, because I believe that if you show like those, I mean, the flipping is good, and kicking and all the stuff is good, but if you focus too much on that, I just feel like that from my point of view, like people are gonna get overwhelming and they're gonna see like, well, I can't do that. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna be able
Confidence,
to do that.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
they you gotta show the basic like from baby steps, and which I agree,
Another
pro
reason.
teaching is awesome.
Yeah, another reason why when you do your shows and demos, you need to have people with 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years experience so you can see the varied levels of progression. It's
Yeah,
not just a bunch of instructors out there flipping and jumping. Again, with people seeing it and just going, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. It's too
yeah,
much." And I
exactly.
know other career martial artists that have highly skilled, highly developed skills in karate or in Muay Thai or in something else, and they're just like, "Oh no, that looks too hard. I can't do that."
Yeah,
For
yeah,
me, therein lies the challenge, right?
yeah, yeah.
But for other people, that it's not enough of a challenge, or it's too much challenge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because just imagine like someone, because I've seen people joining capoeira with 40 years old. I mean, they can get to a point that they can do macaco and backflips stuff, but it's not all usually the case. And people of that age are gonna be like, well, is the usually mindset be, well, I'm not able to do those kind of stuff.
For sure, and that's again why when we show it, we need to show that it's achievable, um, and then when they're in class, we need to celebrate all the little steps, and again, prioritize the communication, the culture, prioritize the flow in the game, and the questions and answers. It's not always about big flips, and you don't have to have a crazy flip game to be having a great time. If you're having fun, you're coming back.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
leave with
exactly.
a smile on your face and you've had great conversations with people and had a few jokes, and that's what it's all about, especially when you're trying to keep people in classes, when you're trying to build a community,
Yeah,
because it goes beyond just having a bunch of people come in and they pay for class and they go home. We're not doing Zumba.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I like that
I
one. We're
want
not doing so. That's true.
I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to grow. Like I said, when I met Mestre Cicatriz, he gave me a number of opportunities, and I was in some darker places in my life when I met him, and he gave me the opportunity to change and to grow and to be more of the potential that he saw.
Nice.
And it was through the community, it was through his energy, it was through the sharing and the patience that he had
Yeah,
that allowed me to grow to where I am. And
he's
for
guiding.
me, if I'm not paying that forward, then I'm doing Capoeira an injustice, and I'm doing him an injustice.
Yeah, yeah,
So I remember hearing when Minjin was on your podcast, and he was saying,
yeah.
you have to teach as part of your development. If you take so much from Capoeira, enough to get to Graduado Corda or Blue Corda, then it's time to start thinking about how can you
Give it
give
back.
that back.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Or pay it forward.
yeah, yeah. Like, guess is like another podcast I've been talking about. Like capoeira is so much nice energy, such a like pure energy. Like it's just not enough to just like keep it to yourself. You know, like I like sharing those kind of stuff, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then how do you advertise your class besides
We
of
do
course doing presentations and all that?
we do yeah, the promos and the demos are always great. And working into schools is a great opportunity if you get to do that. I do some Facebook marketing and a little bit of Instagram marketing, not as much as I could or should.
Okay.
I haven't done it for a while. We go through phases where every couple of months we would do an intro day
Cool.
where
Okay.
the Saturday afternoon we promote for a couple of weeks or a month or so and get a whole bunch of people in, because most people don't want to be the only newbie. in a class.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So if you can get 15, 20 people in and do an introduction to capoeira, again, use that as an education tool. This is where it comes from. Here's a basic movement that's a kick. Here's a basic movement that's an escape. We're all going to do a cartwheel and we're going to do a negativa. So something for offensive, something for defensive, a floor movement of some kind, and an acrobatic movement of some kind. Find a way to flow with it, and bringing the community in. It's not just me in front of a bunch of new people. I've
yeah,
got sometimes as many students there to help out and to do live music and to grab these new people one on one and say, all right, let's do this. Watch your elbow here and make sure you skill. And then they get to experience the ashe, right, the energy of a group, and how it feels to be part of something bigger than
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not, again, it's not Zumba. I'm not going in to do my class, shake my booty for half an hour, and then
yeah,
leave.
yeah, yeah. Because they start learning that process of giving a little bit back and try to like help others to like come up to even to their level or like even higher. And that leads me to the next question. Like you mentioned that it's very important to get into schools. How do you structure those kind of stuff to get into school? Because right now I'm working on a project for to try to find the way how to get into like middle school or high school stuff. How do you structure those? Do you have a paper or how do you start from the beginning?
A lot of the school stuff that I've managed to get are one-offs and usually come through some kind of connection or an email that comes to me. But I have some connections through the Toronto School Board that have explained to me that most school boards have like uh, a preferred clients list or a preferred performers list that they would get to come in and do things at their school because it's easier for the school board to authorize the checks and stuff like that. So getting yourself in contact with the actual school board, finding out what their requirements are,
Okay.
and then creating promotional packages that will fit with their requirements, because usually they'll want your performance or your workshop to have something that fits with the syllabus of the school, whether it be conflict resolution or community or
Oh,
health and wellness. So you've got to, or I shouldn't say you've got to, it's something to consider is how you're going to sell the elements of capoeira and how you would want to consider the way you would present. So you might have 4 or 5 different set packages that you could
yeah.
send out and say, this is for this. Here's one for Black History Month. Here's one for when you have your wellness month this other time of year. Here's one for Women's Month. So you can shift. You've been teaching for a while, right? So
Yes.
you kind of know how to shift your focus in a direction that's going to be helpful for the students and what
Okay.
they're looking for. So
Okay.
that's my advice: is get into find out what your local school boards have with as far as their requirements for what they look for when they get people in, and try to get onto their preferred list of people that come to schools.
Yeah, yeah. And do you target more towards the middle school or the high school? Which one would you prefer?
We do mostly elementary school stuff, so the
Oh, okay.
little ones.
Okay.
I also would like to get into high schools, and again, it's something I teach different stuff in high schools throughout the school year, so I don't have a lot of daytime availability. I
Yeah.
teach like a women's self-defense course in high schools, and I teach like a guys anti-bullying conflict resolution
Okay.
courses. So, but yeah, to get and maintain and keep teens
Yeah.
in capoeira classes is a challenge. I've seen some phenomenally talented kids come, and as soon as they get to that 14 to 16 age, they just disappear. And then
They stop
hopefully,
coming.
yeah, whatever their reason is, whether they have more freedom, whether they have more ability to choose, whether they have a part-time job or have too much study. We go through stages in our life where we always
Yeah.
have to make these choices. That's why I like starting elementary, because we're going to go through stages in our life where it's elementary to middle school, and now my study habits change. Now this changes middle school to high
Yeah.
school, and now maybe I have a job. Maybe I'm working towards university. Maybe I have to travel further for my school,
Yeah,
and
or
then
move
from
out of
high
town.
school, yeah, from high school to university, you're going to have another time where your students are going to need to choose, where does capoeira fit on my priority list?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
University to a job once they start working, having a career to their first serious relationship, and the serious relationship to getting married, married to
Yeah.
having kids.
Yeah,
So each
exactly.
one of these stages is a place where your students are going to have to prioritize capoeira somewhere on a list.
Yeah.
And the earlier we can start them thinking that capoeira is a part of their life, the
The
more
longer.
our chances are somewhere at one of those evaluation points they'll come back, or they'll keep putting us higher in that
Yeah.
priority list.
That's awesome. That's a pretty good point to because I mean you grew up and then you start thinking, hey, like I used to do this when I was a little kid, and I think or connections so they can like bring someone else and be like, hey, I used to do this. You should try it, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna like it. Or, but I understand that point.
Yeah, so the more we can positively affect people during whatever stage they come to us,
Yeah.
and when and if they do end up making a choice that capoeira is going to have to take a break, we hope that the effect that we've had has been positive enough that will build enough saudades, or longing for them to want to come back next time they have another choice. And the classic one for female students is having a child.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's where a lot of times we lose people, and you can want to them to come back as much as you do,
Yeah.
but they're always going to choose their kid and their family, and
Yeah.
you're like, I
Always.
get it. Another reason why at the academy it's great that we have a big open reception space, and my kids are here quite often, and there's playstations and books and arts and crafts. So maybe the first 3 or 4 years after your child is born, you want to be there all the time, but they get to a point where they continue to grow too, and
Yeah.
they can be self-sufficient for an hour and a half or 2 hours for a class while
Yeah. Yeah. And play
you're
with the other
training.
kids and stuff.
And but having that atmosphere of family vibe in an academy is really advantageous to that process.
Yeah, because we bring more people with a desire of like having that like homey place where they can know, okay, yeah, it's a nice environment where I can bring my kids, where I can be safe too.
Yeah, we have a couple of kids that come in and do the 6 to 7 kids class, and then their mom does the 7 to 8:30 Hijinal class adults
Oh,
after, right? So she's sitting in here on the Wi-Fi finishing up some work and some emails while they train, and then they come out here and hang out with my boys while she goes in and gets her hour and a half in, and then everybody
that's
goes
so
home.
cool.
And so that having a family vibe and having something that's accommodating, that is what is really important about having a space. We couldn't do that if we were just renting someone else's gym for an hour.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah,
It would be very different.
yeah. Then and I know at least here in the US, I don't know too much about the Canada structure. Is better if you have like certain amount of or entity like structure entity like any company setup or non-profit setup. Do you have those kind of stuff there for
I don't
Capoeira?
have, yeah, I don't have any non-profit things set up, but it's something I've been talking about with my wife on and off for a while. She's a yoga teacher, yoga instructor, and she's an educator in the school board. And the yoga company that she works for has exactly that. They have a business entity, and then they have a not-for-profit entity, and it works really, really well for them to get grants and to do other things, but also as a way to help service the community.
Yeah,
And
give back to the community.
yeah, last year we did a free youth program for 10 weeks
Oh,
as
cool.
part of the Cultural Hotspots program run with the City of Toronto. And it was amazing. We had enough funding to really put everything together, and we had like 20 something 30 kids start, and by
Wow,
the
cool.
end of the 10 weeks there was We did it. It finished with the 10-week program finished with the kids from the program joining us on stage at that Taste of Lawrence festival.
Oh, nice.
And for any teens and youth to do 10 weeks of something and then perform on stage, I kind of thought it was a very high expectation. But
Yeah.
at the final performance, there was like 13 or 14 of these kids on stage with us at the performance in front of hundreds of people
Wow.
performing capoeira, doing their kicks and their awuls and moving around. And it was really rewarding. So again, having not-for-profit organizations really allows you to look more deeply into that kind of stuff. And it's something I'd like to do. One of my friends, Professor Sasi here, he runs his academies as a not-for-profit, and it works
Okay.
really well for him too.
Nice. And I bet the feeling of those kids that they left home with a big ass smile.
Yeah, well, and again, like it's an opportunity to present people with different ways of seeing the world,
Yeah.
and different ways of interpreting little things. So again, with the stuff that I do in the high schools, there's always like an affirmation at the end of the class where we present something for the kids to think about, whether it's about respect for self, respect for others, or about learning to accept certain realities in the world and taking the time to reflect and then change the things we can and have the patience to accept the things we can't, and the intelligence or the wisdom to recognize the difference between the two.
Yeah.
It was really great to see moments where in the class kids are like, I can't. And I was like, okay, well, can't for me is an acronym for certainly am not trying.
Oh, cool.
So we got to do that, and I gave them a sequence that was like a meio de French, negativa to the side, negativa to the back, a hole and a macaco.
Okay.
And it was week 6, and in the first 5 weeks, they'd done every single one of those moves individually.
Nice.
And then I said, oh, let's put it all together. And as soon as I did the sequence together, everyone looked at me and their jaws dropped. I can't do that. And I'd say, look, how many
It's
times in
beautiful.
your life, how many times in your life have you stood in front of a big task and thought, I can't do that? Whether it's a homework or whether it's cleaning your room or whether it's a big assignment. I said, now, let's just look at this. This is this kick we did. This is this kick we've done. This is this movement we've done and this movement we've done. We know all the pieces. We just break it down into one piece, and then we do the next piece and we do the next piece. And when we get to the end, I said, just like every time you've had to clean your room or you finished that assignment, you kind of look back and you go, oh, it
I
wasn't
did it.
so hard. It
Yeah.
wasn't, yeah. And it was much worse in my head than it was in reality. I just got to get forward and do one little step at a time. I
Yeah.
don't have to always look at it as a whole. And then when I get to the end, I can look back and feel that sense of, oh, I did that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Because, for example, like almost all the kids that have in my class, they never done handstand before. And last two classes, one of my kids, he hold handstand probably for like, I don't know, probably 10 seconds. And when he came down, he was super excited, and like all the kids, oh man, look at that, that's pretty cool. And same because I break it down too, like I go step by step how to like go to the handstand and stuff, blah, blah, to control it, to control their bodies, and they get like super super happy. And since and what kind of structure do you run your school with?
I, I'm I have a lot of philosophies on movement. I worked as a personal trainer in Australia for a while, and so I take a biomechanical approach to understanding how does the body work, how does this movement work in my body, and then I'm a huge believer. I have a statement. I say the movement is more important than the move,
Ah, cool. Okay.
because we can drill a movement,
Yeah.
whether it's like a finta movement or whether it's some other movement. And the way the shoulders rotate, the hips, the ribs, the toes, the sequence of events, whether it's coiling down or coiling up through the body, it's a movement that you can feel. And then I can say, now look, this movement is applied for like a finta, like I just swing into my fake.
Yeah.
I can swing into my fake and lean my weight back, and it's a hashtera. I can
Yeah.
swing into my fake and lean my weight forward and turn and rotate, and it's a Vingachiva. I can swing my body this way and leave my back foot, and now I'm into a Tizora. So the movement of moving into that fake is a really important thing to explore and to
Nice.
practice, because I can apply that movement with a little detail change, and it becomes a different move. Beyond that, I have a bunch of what I call bread and butter drills, or rice and beans,
Okay.
because for me a big thing in capoeira is playing with proximity, being
Yeah.
able to kick and skiver and kick and skiver. So there's a lot of sequences you can do that is just, there's no beginning, there's no end, and there's no winner and there's no loser.
Okay.
We just I kick twice, you skiver twice, you kick twice, I skiver twice, and we can just do it repetitively over and over again and get faster and closer and
Yeah.
closer and faster. So we're building skivers and kicks and movements, and we can add and lengthen the sequence and fill gaps. But I can take this one bread and butter sequence and explain 7 different reasons why there's points and moments in that bread and butter drill that I
Yeah.
can apply to another, 10 different things. So that just the movement again of the bread and butter drill is going to be applicable for a whole bunch of different moves.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Because I do the same too. With my kids, like for example, when I explain them the jingle, like, hey, like if you curve your back, that's gonna hurt your back, so you gotta keep straight, so you gotta lean a little bit forward, so you keep straight line in the back, so that way you don't put too much weight on your lower back. That's the way you see people. And then I explain them the steps of how don't hurt themselves with bad form or bad movements.
Yeah, and kids are a whole other story, right? Because their attention spans are so short.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
this is
it is.
again why I like playing games, because you can squeeze extra details into part of a game, and you'll always find they'll get to a point in the game where some kids are starting to just fade off, and you're like, okay, drink
Yeah.
break, and everyone goes away, and you
Yeah,
come back with a new game and a new strategy and a new way of keeping them moving.
yeah,
Because when like I teach 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and when they're that young, if I try to say you need to jingle and bend your back leg like this at 45 degrees because you have to have your stomach pulled in, and this is the optimal, balanced position, they're gonna be like, what?
yeah,
So
yeah,
getting them to just make habits again with
yeah.
movements is a great way to bring that in.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Now that you mentioned like the games, those interactive games, well, where do you find them? Do you create them yourself, or you just like find them somewhere?
Um, some of the games are inspired by other teachers or other moments I had. One of the most important little kid games that I play, that's like my first go-to, I learned from uh, a mestre in Belo Horizonte when I was there in 2010, Mestre Binha and Contra Mestre Guerreira, and they teach a lot of kids classes, and they just had this one little simple game with the pandera they play, and it's call and response, and the kids do these little movements and everybody follows everybody else, and it's a catchy little song that they sing, and I was just like, that's gold, I'm going to
Yeah,
take that. And then at the same workshop, at the same event, there was another mestre who taught a lot of stuff with ropes, and it was interesting and funny to me because the workshop was Mestre Hulk.
oh, okay,
And
okay.
I was like, oh, this big, real tough, legendary guy. I can't wait to do
Yeah,
his workshop. And we did an hour and a half of kids' class stuff.
huh, that's crazy.
And he was like, community, we got to make sure that, we're teaching the kids and making them grow. And he did a lot of stuff with the rope across the room. And I was just like impressed again. I thought there's
Yeah,
great concepts in how when you give certain drills with the rope over and under the rope, you can't get it wrong and end
yeah,
up on the right side of the rope. So having a visual and a physical barrier, I
yeah,
find helps to get the kids into and out of certain positions and movements, and makes them get high enough for some things and low enough for other
yeah,
things. And again, as long as they're following each other down the room and you can keep singing and keep doing stuff, Um, and of course, some of these games I've altered and developed my own versions of, but I have to definitely pay credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I've been teaching kids classes for probably 10 years, and so
Nice.
you just
That's pretty
you
good.
get you get things that work well, and then you get things that don't, and you have to
Yeah.
drop them, or you have to
Yeah.
reassess them and reinvent them.
Just
Um,
try and keep trying until you find what fits. At least like with a group.
absolutely. Absolutely, and there is some shift in the way that classes and stuff had to be run in Australia to how it's done culturally here, and things to deal with that change. But kids are always the same, and
Yeah.
they're going to be fickle. They're going to have short attention spans, and they just want to play. And sometimes, they get a little too rowdy, and we have to remember that we're not a karate. We're not another
Yeah.
art
Yeah.
form where every kid has to stand in line in their, horse stance, ready to throw punches and scream, and everyone needs to be
Everyone's
perfectly
silence
disciplined.
and yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
capoeira is an expression of freedom, and it's an
Yeah.
expression of creativity. So we have to allow for some of that craziness. And the, I used to teach in a karate school and an MMA school, and the guy who ran the school was like, "I can't believe you let those kids do that. How do you let them?" And I'm like, "Man, the kids
Seriously.
that had loved my class,
Yeah.
they hated your class. Like some kids are fine with structure. One of my sons, he got mad at me today in a class because he thought what I was doing didn't match his vision of the structure, and he's like, we need the structure, we need the structure. So like put him in a karate class and he's going to love it. But there are
Yeah.
other kids that have that struggle with the amount of intensity and the amount of pressure that's put on them to be still and to be that regimented and that
Rigid.
structured.
Yeah.
So capoeira is a great outlet where you can be creative. You can still learn an art. You can still learn some discipline. You can learn respect. You can learn culture. You can have a great time. You can learn music. You can learn
Yeah.
some acrobatics. I've never come across an art form like capoeira, and that's why I fell in love with it.
Yeah. 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 The same. The same. Cause when I was little kid, same. I love martial arts and I saw I like kicks and stuff and I always saw on TV like those like taekwondo's like competitions. I was like I always told my mom like man, it looks pretty cool. Until I saw capoeira for the first time and I was like man, I think this is mine.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Where were you when you first saw it?
What year?
Where were you?
But back in Venezuela. I was you say age or
Just tell me about the first time you saw it.
oh well the so I was on high school with my friends and I saw my brother's friend no not my friend's brother they were started like kicking and doing ahmada and macaco and they were talking between them like hey no, like let's do this ahmada au mostao. Then I was like, man, what the heck these people talking about? Like, Amada. And then I tell my friend, like, dude, what are you brothers talking about? Like, he's just talking about like these kind of like weird names. And he was like, no, it's just capoeira. What is that, man? Then he started talking to me, no, it's capoeira, it's these martial arts that he practiced in this university stuff. And I was like, I think I let show me where's that and show me the class and so I can go and see it because it looks pretty cool. Then he showed me the class. He told me where to go and all that stuff. Then I saw his brother in class, and I was like, "Man, I these have to be the class because the guy is here." Then I saw him with a beating bow, and the Hoda like they were practicing music, and everyone was dressing white stuff, and I was like, "Man, this is kind of weird." Like this guy with kind of sort of stick in the hand, and I was 15 years old by then. And then I approached him and I was like, hey, like I just want to see how is the class and all stuff. And that was 2001. And then he told me, well, you just go there, try talk to the instructor, and he's gonna tell you everything how everything works. Then I talked to him and they start teaching me like all the jinga and all the stuff. And since then he was like, I was I think we were probably like 15 people 15, 20 people that started that day, and I'm the only one. Does they still does capoeira now?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's important for us to remember how we first saw it and when we first
Yeah,
saw it. When we bring people in and when we're out doing demonstrations, to again, it takes time to understand what
yeah,
they're seeing. And yeah, that's another thing that when you look back and you say, oh, there was 20 people in that class that day,
yeah,
and you look around and you're like, where did they all go?
yeah,
And some of those connections are deep, and you might still see those people in other places. But yeah, I have a screensaver on my computer, and so I walk away and I come back and I sit down. I'm looking at photos from 15 years ago on my screensaver, and I'm like, what happened to that guy? What
I know.
happened to this person?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah, yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, but usually all of them happen what we were you were saying at the beginning, that they grew up and then go to college and they start like switching the priorities on in class. They get married, they have kids, and is all those life shifting, and I guess they forget, or probably they don't have the same priorities that we do at some point with capoeira.
Yeah,
And
priorities and opportunities, I guess,
an
right?
opportunity, that's true. Yeah, opportunity is a big one. And now to like getting pretty close to the end, do you have any bachizado going coming, with dates and all the stuff for this year?
Our Butters Out of this year is going to be July 20. So I
Nice.
just put my like Facebook event out, like save the date. I'm still working on some guests and stuff, but it'll be a great year. It's the first. I have two students that started training with me back in 2011 when I started here,
Yeah.
and they're getting their graduado quotas
Nice.
this
Oh
year.
wow.
So I have two graduados and a graduado. They came to me from other teachers from other groups here in Toronto. But this year, these two people, one guy, one girl, they're both going to be getting their first blue cord. That's
Nice.
straight from the school here, not about from me, but straight from the
Yeah.
school here. So we're really excited to have that, and
Yeah.
Meshu coming down again. Failing that, there's not much else except for everyone else's events that I look forward to going to.
Yeah, yeah. Congrats on that, man, because it takes a lot of work to build those kind of like graduados and years and practice, and like, come on, man, you gotta go to class. Why you don't come into class?
Yeah, it takes a lot. These two, they've been really consistent though for like
Nice.
2 or 3 times a week for the whole 8 years. A little bit before
Wow.
I officially started in March 11, but we had a few other classes and things between December and January.
Nice.
So yeah, we're super excited. And then I've got another Brazil trip coming up with my family in August, so we'll be away for that.
That's really cool. When in August?
Uh, so our group has every 3 years we have a big event, a big Mundial and International in
Okay.
Rio de Janeiro and in Belo Horizonte. And my wife, because she works as a teacher, she's working through the school year and always misses out on the
Oh.
Mundial.
Yeah.
And so my kids both trained and they wanted to come. So August is summertime. So after
Yeah.
Batizado, we'll run things for another week or two, and then my students will take over the classes for a couple of weeks while my wife, my
That's really
family,
cool.
we go, and we're going to try and take some other families, so some kids from here and their parents. We're trying to make it a family trip, and hopefully
So
that's something we can continue to do every couple of years, because the Mundial is every 3 years.
yeah.
So if we could build a kids version of a Mundial that we could do at a different time of the year, because North American kids have the summer off, so that's more
Yeah.
optimal than doing the event in November. Then that would be amazing too if we could get that running smoothly.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And what is it the date for your bachillerato again?
It's July 18 to July 20 this year.
Nice, nice. And once I edit all these, I'll pull the link there for people to go visit, and hopefully the people from all around, if there are people listening to this, they can at least go visit you and support you there. You do your work. And
That would be
what up?
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And what about what kind of advice would you give to capoeira instructors? Are there that any capoeira person that is teaching right now that is listening to this? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Advice to teachers. That's a challenging one. I, a wise man once said to me, "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care."
Nice, nice.
So you need to create, or I believe you need to create an environment where it's open and it's welcoming and it's fun and it's friendly. You want to make the classes challenging, but you want to make them achievable.
Yeah,
It's hard to fill all of those boxes. So the first other piece of advice I will always give is be consistent.
yeah,
If you're turning up late, if you're not running classes consistently and you're here and you're there, or if you travel a lot, it's going to be much harder for you to build that student base, to make them feel like they're a part of something, to make them feel like they have real direction behind them or in
yeah.
front of them. Um, when my friend Professor Tamandawa started his school in the Gold Coast in Australia, he kind of closed himself off. He said, "I'm not traveling for 3 years. I'm just going to build my school. I'm just going to concentrate on all my students. I'm just going to do that." He was lucky though, because he was already still in a country where he was known as a capoeirista.
Nice, nice.
When I moved to Toronto, I had to come and introduce myself to all of the other groups, all of the other schools. Here's this Australian guy coming into Canada,
Yeah,
opening up his own school. If I had have just stayed on my own and stayed in the peripheries, it would have been even more challenging to earn the respect of the community
yeah,
and to build the connections with the other community. When you move to a different city or a different country and you start your own group, you don't have capoeiristas at a level that are going to push your game, that are going to
yeah.
keep you
That's true.
moving.
Yeah,
But if building a community is your priority, build it.
yeah,
It's going to be a sacrifice for a couple of years until you get some students that can move around. That's why being a part of the greater community is really important, because that's where I got my games in. That's where I got my big workshops, and I continued to grow as a capoeirista even when I moved here and I wasn't training under my own mastery, because I became part of a greater community. And for
nice.
the most part, the Toronto capoeira community is amazing and hardworking. There's some great maestries and some great professors and some great instructors. So that's my chance to get out there, and or was my chance in the early days, to make sure I'm still pushing myself forward at
Yeah,
the same time pushing my students forward. So, finding that balance between what you do for yourself, what you do for your group, and what you do for capoeira in general.
yeah,
Um, that's a really important thing, and a great maestri once told me that. He said there are your three things: you do capoeira for yourself, there's things you do for your group, and there's things you do for the community or for capoeira as a whole. So
nice.
making sure that you're covering all your boxes, and there's no recipe, there's no one correct way
Okay,
to be
shorters. Yeah,
successful, right? And that's, capoeira in general. There's no one correct way to play capoeira.
yeah,
And
exactly.
as long as you're true to yourself and you're true to your people, and you keep working hard and you're committed and you're honest and you're caring, then you should be successful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what now talking about like couple in general, I think you already kind of like touch it, but what kind of advice would you give to capoeiristas in general?
Hmm. I don't feel like I have a right to speak to capoeiristas in general. I'm still only a
Oh,
professor.
yeah,
But
but
look,
at least there's
love
some
what you
people.
do.
Yeah, yeah,
Loving what you do is really important. It's easy for people to get jaded. This happened, and people to allow politics or intergroup things to get in the way of their enjoyment of the art. Always, like we were just saying, go back to when you first saw it, how you first felt, why did you want to do it, and remind yourself it's fun. I have a great time, and stay true to the roots of your reasons for starting in the first place. I think it's really important, because it's easy to get lost. I say the belt system in capoeira is kind of a similar progression to the growth of a human being in general.
Yeah.
When you start with your Y chord, you're like a little baby and you need to be spoon fed everything, and I need to take good care of you. And by the time you start to reach those intermediate chords, you're like a self-sufficient 10, 11, 12-year old kid. You know a few things, you can have a little conversation, you can kind of move around, but still you need someone to look after you. You need
Yeah,
someone to
exactly.
give you direction and give you advice. By the time we hit those graduado up to like monitor levels, that's when you hit your teenage years.
Yeah.
And you think you know enough, and you're like, I'm good. And you get out there and you push yourself around, and sometimes you kind of get yourself into a hole and someone else has to dig you out, or
Yeah.
your parents, your teachers and your parents bring you back in and they're like, hey, let's talk about what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then by the time you reach instructor, you're like a parent and you're starting to raise your own kids.
Yeah.
And by the time you hit our mastery, then you're like a grandparent and you're watching your kids raise kids, right? And then you
Yeah.
got your own instructors that are looking at you and they're like, oh, this guy in my class, mastery, he's like this. And you sitting
I
back going,
remember.
do you remember when you were like that? And so, enjoy the process, but having the chord system being a mirror for how we progress in life,
Yeah.
it's another challenge when you think that some people start really young and some people start really late. So sometimes the courses of your natural life and the maturity that you're having is going to run in a slightly different course to the growth of your capoeira.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have people with really high chords and really low life experience or low levels of wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not mature enough to certain point.
Yeah. So it's important to maintain these standards and perceive how much worldliness you need to have to hold certain chords, I
Nice.
think is important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And to wrap it up and to finish, what are your contact information? How people can reach out to you?
So if anybody wanted to find learncapoeira.ca, they can go straight to the website. The contact page has info at learncapoeira.ca. That's goes straight to me. Soquete at learncapoeira.ca. Again, the Instagram, Professor Soquete or Kadara Capoeira Scarborough. We have the Facebook, which is Kadara Capoeira Canada.
Nice.
And you could probably just Google Soquete and come up with stuff. That's a good thing about having a unique enough name. But you're
Yeah.
also going to end up looking at a lot of pictures of light sockets.
Oh. Well, that was pretty cool. That thank you so much for all the information. Thank you so much for sharing all the information, how you structure everything, how you work for capoeira, and I really appreciate like you sharing all these kind of stuff.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. That's why I wanted to reach out and talk to you because what you're doing is fabulous. There
Thank you.
needs to be more work for most people who don't speak fluently in Portuguese yet to be able to hear some of these conversations and see other people's perspectives. And then sometimes that helps them to appreciate their professors, their instructors, their mestries
Yeah,
more, because then they're like, oh, it's not just my own mestri who keeps telling me same things.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a wonderful educational tool and
Thank you.
conversational tool. So I really respect what you're doing, and
Thank you.
again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, yeah. The because the day I started thinking about this podcast, uh, technology is growing, and I think we have to use technology in our advantage. Start like helping each other, and like I always said in the podcast, capoeira was created to help each other and to like educate each other and to like start pushing each other to greater.
Absolutely, capoeira mata right?
Yeah.
One of the interpretations I always give for that song is like, yeah, it kills one. But are we talking about the deadly nature of capoeira, or are we talking about the community nature of capoeira? How it removes singularity and brings people together.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, and I love the capoeira community, and I think Capoeira community right now is getting together, but I feel like still like some stuff that we have to we keep work on those kind of stuff to bring it even more together.
Yes, and it's always going to be a work in progress, but
Yes, of course.
more reason to keep working.
Yes, of course. And thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I talk to you soon. And hopefully we get some people to get to your vachisada.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, man.
Cheers.
All right. I just want to share something with you really quick. If you are listening to this and you teach or assist to a capoeira class, or even if you have an event coming up, I want to help you. I want to help our capoeira community because there's nothing more important to me than help our capoeira community. Because classes are more fun when there's more people to share this sachet, this energy so awesome that capoeira has. So I want to share your class or event in our podcast. So reach out to us with school name or any information on how people can find you and send it to our email podcastcapoeira@gmail.com. That's podcastcapoeira@gmail.com. And I will share that information here in our podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you like this podcast. If you did, take a screenshot, send it to someone that knows about capoeira or of course wants to learn. Share it everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, everywhere. And help us grow this community with a subscribe. Thank you so much. Peace.